So like 1.3 million for Taylor Swift on New Heights podcast. You know what? I was just looking this up while you were talking. You know what Shedeur pulled down for his week 1 preseason win?
No.
2.3.
Whoa.
One of
That's
the
a
higher
nice
rated
segue. So
preseason
now
games ever.
wow. And that's a good
Isn't that
segue
amazing?
from our Northeast Ohio discussion into one of the most ridiculous preseason stories I've been around in my 20 years covering the NFL.
I mean, he's here and he's here today and he's gone tomorrow. I mean, I don't know.
You know what my favorite thing about I'm sure everybody's seen the Tony Grossi video by now. If you haven't, Tony Grossi is probably one of the longest tenured beat writers in the history of the NFL, not just now, but I'm not sure anybody's covered. There are very many people who've covered a single team for as long as Tony Grossi's covered the Browns. I think he covered the Browns when Marty Schottenheimer was the coach there. And so Tony was in the tunnel in Bank of America Stadium, I think, right? Like they were in Carolina. And so there's a video of him in the tunnel and Shedeur going up to him and Shedeur talking about like basically lodging a complaint with him, I think is the nice way to put it, right? What did he say? It was something like, why you gotta dog me like that? Why are you always dogging me, Tony?
Why you always say negative stuff about me? Yeah.
Right, whatever it was. So he said something along those lines, and then they talk it out. And I think we've all been in those situations before. If you've covered a team, you say something or write something that someone doesn't like. And I don't know if you're this way, Conor. I actually appreciate those conversations. Like
100%.
I think those conversations are great. Like I think those conversations are necessary. And I think I can speak for you at least, and probably most reporters when I say I would much rather have a guy do that than like hold a grudge for 2 years, 3 years, and you don't know, and it's just got weird and you don't know why. Like I would much rather have somebody come up to me and say they had a problem with something I did or said.
Right.
And so like I really liked that in the moment. And then I clicked on it and I found out who actually shot it. And then it was like, all right, like, so was this another thing that was just staged and it's just quote unquote content? You know, because I don't have any like I appreciate him doing that, and I think that's a healthy thing for a player to do, and I think it's a healthy conversation for a reporter to have. But that was his camera crew that shot that.
It's his brother.
Yeah, and so somebody told me then that it was shot in the tunnel because they couldn't get credential for the locker room. So I just like, so instead of having that conversation in the locker room, it's to me, I don't know. I mean, like this thing has grown legs on legs on legs on legs. And like, I don't think like in the end, all of it is really beneficial to Shedeur and his development and allowing him to be a 5th round rookie trying to make a football team, you know? Is what he did good? Yeah, it's good. And, you know, I was with the Browns yesterday. I really think like in the big picture of all of this, really what he did was, okay, you passed your first test and now we're going to put a little more on your plate and we're going to see how you handle it. That's what it is, right? Like it's okay. You know, like from an operation standpoint, operating the offense, you're behind the other guys, which is why we couldn't put you in there with the first team. And now you've passed another test. So we're going to put a little more on your plate and see how you handle it. Right. And these are natural steps you take. Instead, the narrative becomes, could he start in week 1? You know what I mean? Like, does that really help anyone?
I don't think it helps anyone. I think what it does is it creates an unreasonable expectation that he has to, and it puts it in the brains of the fans that he has to play at some point. And especially when this season gets out of control, which it will pretty quickly, he is going to be the one that they turn to say, well, at least we want something with upside. We want someone with upside.
Right.
And what's weird about that is, okay, so for a moment, I'm sitting there and I'm watching that preseason game and I'm saying, like, wow, because he's checking all the boxes, except for the fact that he did drift a lot and he turned his back to the field a lot, which is not what you want to do. Yeah, and yeah, but throwing players open, not being afraid to throw the ball in certain situations, stepping up into throws, like he has that Rolodex, that preseason check off the box thing that you want him to do for everything. And, it's hard to describe that vacillation of emotion that you go through. It's like, wow, maybe I was wrong about that guy. And literally 40 minutes later, there's like a planned content confrontation filmed by your brother in the tunnel of the locker room where you're goading and Dion is, I mean, my God, it's a preseason start over the worst historical defense in like modern NFL history. And Dion is like, God is good on Twitter. Like, it's just like,
But it creates, like, you're right though, like that's the right way to couch it. It creates an unrealistic expectation.
yeah,
It creates because like the people who are making the noise to say like, well, why isn't he getting first team reps? They're not saying that because they're like let's get him real development. They're saying that because they want to be able to open up the argument that he could start week 1, which is completely unrealistic. And I just think like this whole thing has gotten to a point where I'm not saying the competition was rigged, but I think the writing's been on the wall. It's going to be Joe Flacco, right? And I I think the trouble we have with this argument is like I don't. If I was a fan, I would probably look at the same way, right? Like if I was a Cleveland Browns fan, I would probably look at it and say, "There's no use in starting Joe Flacco. You're wasting your time." You know what I mean? Like that guy's not going to be your quarterback in 2 or 3 years, so why are you starting him? I understand that logic, right? At the same time, like if you're Kevin Stefanski, you have to keep your team on board. And you have to give the guys in your locker room a chance to win here and now and play well here and now. And do you think like your 28-year-old guard, your 27-year-old receiver, do you think they care about the franchise's quarterback situation
no,
2027? Okay. On top of that, you've got a 6-game stretch that is an absolute gauntlet. Like that you look at it and it's like you can get yourself to 0-6 really, really fast.
yeah.
So if you're Kevin Stefanski, like the players know before anyone knows. You know what I mean? The players know who can play and who can't. And if Joe Flacco is clearly going to give those players the best chance to succeed individually and as a team, and Kevin Stefanski does not give them Joe Flacco as the quarterback, he throws a rookie out there for the sake of let's see what we got. What do you think is going to happen with the locker room?
My only curiosity here,
Now, when you
and
now real quick, if you're 2-8, that's something else,
right,
right? But at the start of the year, you just can't do that.
this year the MMQB is playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too. Whether you're a first timer or a veteran making your millionth league, guys, for me, anytime that I go to open up a new league with friends, anytime that I'm playing on Sunday, I am on Yahoo Fantasy. It's got all the best updates. It's got the fastest notifications for when you get a touchdown, when you get a score. It's the absolute best. And to celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's only one left standing. And with the season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/MMQB. That's yahoofantasy.com/MMQB. Look at this freaking schedule. Cincinnati, Baltimore, Packers, Lions, Vikings, Steelers, Dolphins, Patriots, bye, at Jets, at Baltimore, at Vegas, like San Francisco. I, I mean, you close out the season with Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati. Like, I my only thought,
Yeah.
and so as we're talking, it's 8:29 a.m., 7:29 a.m. at Albert's time. My all 272 game predictions have just dropped at si.com.
Yeah. So the
Talk
cover
about
art.
that.
I haven't
I know.
clicked on it yet, but I'll get
Great,
there.
great cover art. Great job by the SI photo team and the graphics team. I have Cleveland getting the number 1 pick. I have them finishing the season 2-15. And having learned my lesson from Jason Light and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I understand that this is something that people will read and
And
people will look at and people will take offense to. And so I want to get ahead of that by saying that when the Browns have been bad in the past, they've been strategically bad. They have been bad on purpose in order to get good players on the back end. That's how they ended up with Baker Mayfield. That's how they ended up with Myles Garrett. That's how a lot of this has taken place. And so, as we galaxy brain this Shedeur Sanders thing into something that's incredibly out of control, doesn't he make perfect sense to just keep putting out there, because it's like, okay, well, this is what you want. And again, Joe Thomas didn't want to be a part of this teardown. He didn't want to spend the rest of his Hall of Fame career in the most depressing football, roster in modern NFL history. But Cleveland did it, and they did it to try to get better. And so, do you think that like Paul DePodesta is going to be like, yeah, let's just go 6-11? F no, right? I don't know. Am I wrong here?
I mean, I kind of like the idea. But again, like if you're the coaches, can you do that? You know what I mean? Like, and it's just,
Hugh Jackson didn't get a choice. Well,
no,
Hugh Jackson got some cash for it.
I know. I guess I understand that. But I do think I think that'll take care of itself naturally given the schedule. You know, I mean, I think it's more important. I think, and I think one thing in Hugh's defense and like what happened there is like the culture became so broken, as a result of doing it that way, that there was no reeling it back in. And I just think that's the position you're going to wind up putting yourself in here, is that you risk like breaking the locker room beyond recognition, and so then do you have to start over completely after this year where it's like, okay, like we got to get everybody out of the locker room now, because everybody who went through that, we're going to have a hard time to having the Myles Garretts and the Denzel Wards and the Joel Batonios. We're going to have a hard time getting those guys back and looking at us with a straight face after what they did after what we did that year, So I think at least in the front end, you have to give the players the best chance possible to go and win games. And it doesn't mean, again, that you get to week 14 or 15 and it doesn't, and it can't become like, let's see what we got. That's fine. Like, I think, most cases players understand, they know, you know what I mean? Like they'll understand, like, at this point we've got to assess the roster. We've got to get a clean look at player X, Y, and Z, not just a quarterback, but everywhere. So we're going to do that. But, to do that at the start of the year, to like be in this experimental phase at the start of the year. I mean, look what happened when you did that with Brian Flores in Miami. You know what I mean? Look at what that turned into.
See, what did he win? 5 games that year?
Yeah, and they were like too competitive for management's liking, if I remember right.
I just wonder in
management's defense, it like wound up being the difference between Tua Tagovailoa and Joe Burrow. So,
right, yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, so there's not an argument for doing it that way, but Joe Burrow doesn't come into the league every year either.
I'm just wondering, like, if you're Joel Bitonio, for example, or, Nick Chubb's not there anymore, but like those guys, like the stalwart guys, like in the nicest possible way, like I'm sure it's a great place to work and there's lots of great people there, but like, how seriously are you taking any of this anyway? Like, I mean, with the Deshaun Watson thing that just happened, like all this stuff, it's like, I'm sure you're proud of your body of work, but if they all of a sudden are like, all right, well, Shedeur's going to play, you're probably just rolling your eyes and you're like, all right, here we go. Another day at the crazy factory.
I see what you're saying, but like, let me say this, like, let me from like, just as devil's advocate here, let's say you're so bad that you're like playing from behind constantly, right? Like, and you get in the second half of games and like late in the third quarter of these games, the other team just starts running the ball relentlessly at you, right? Say you're Myles Garrett. So now all of a sudden, like how much of your season is being played in a context where you can't rush the passer and you have like tackles and guards just running right at you. You know what I mean? Like there's like a toll to that I just think I think there's like a lot of reasons why you just have to the players have to know you're giving it an honest effort for them in the here and the now. And that's why I think like there's a there's a natural way of tanking in the NFL, which is like doing what Washington did a couple of years ago when they traded away Montez Sweat and Chase Young, right? Like and they kind of gutted the roster and they fell to number two and took Jaden Daniels. Like that to me is the natural. And then there's an unnatural way of tanking, which is like I think a little bit more what you're talking about and not putting the best players out there, you know?
Right.
And like so I think there's definitely a difference between the two.
I wanted to talk to you today. I can't believe like the Shedeur thing. It's like a riptide. You just get in there and you're and then you
It's
get blown
amazing.
away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I think it's like Tebow or Kaepernick or any of those, right? Like where it's just like it doesn't matter. Like almost it's almost like what happens on the field is a sidebar to the bigger piece of the whole thing.